Hello my dear friends, how are you? I hope that you all must be enjoying in learning and programming with me, right? So friends, in this particular video, we will going to understand about the real scenarios which you will face in your projects. Okay, so nowadays if we talk about, we are working in a world of cloud, right? In your project, you must be using AWS Cloud or Azure, or you might be using Google GCP, right? So you must be having an use case to access your private resources from some external sources, right? So can you tell me in comment section how you are accessing your private resources from some external source? For example, if you want to connect to your database which is on cloud from some private source, okay, you want to access it from outside the cloud, okay, it is a normal use case, isn't it? So you must be accessing your database from some jump server or from some client network, right, or from some virtual machine, right? So how you are accessing it? So let me tell you about the real scenario which we implemented in our project recently. Okay, so if I talk about the cloud, then we are using AWS Cloud. Okay, and on AWS Cloud we are having an RDS, that is PostgreSQL Database, and we were having a requirement to access this PostgreSQL Database, okay, so that we can access our database and we can set up it, or we can use it for the analysis and monitoring purpose, isn't it? Right? So do you have heard about the terminology that is Bastion Host? Did you heard about it? Yes? Please let me know in comment section if you know that what is Bastion Host. So let me tell you that Bastion Host is like a germ server, or is a server which can be used to access the private resources which you are having on AWS or on any cloud. To access those resources externally, you can use the concept of Bastion Host. Okay, so we were having a requirement, our client has given a jump machine, okay, which is on their own network, and we were supposed to access our database using Bastion Host. So let me tell you what we did. We installed AWS, okay, installed AWS. Along with that, we also installed Python on that jump machine, okay. So after installation of this software, what is the first step we did is that we tried to connect to AWS account, okay. We have configured our AWS profile. After configuring it, we try to log into AWS using SSO login, okay. So I have used an git bash here, which is like a CLI tool, okay, where I can execute my various commands, okay. So first I connected to the AWS account. Then after that, our Bastion host is configured in such a way that it is getting shut down every day around 5 p.m. okay. So what is the first step I need to do after this is that I need to scale up or start my Bastion host, okay. So I have configured a public Bastion host. From that public Bastion host, it triggers the private Bastion host. Now this private Bastion host is having access to all the AWS resources, okay. Now it is not possible to connect to this private Bastion host from outside world. That is why we have this public Bastion host, okay. So first we scale up this Bastion host. So now after scaling it up, there is command to scale it up, okay. We have used a PCLI command to scale it up. So now my public Bastion host is started. Now I need to create a session, okay, and I need to connect to my Bastion host from my jump machine, okay. So I have executed a command to connect to my Bastion Host. Okay, till this step, is it clear? Right? Great. Now I am connected to the Bastion host and I can SSH my resources, my private resources, which is on AWS. So this is one step, right? But as I want to access my database using PGAdmin, which is an graphical user interface tool, so that I can visualize my data, I can analyze my data, I can manipulate my data, okay, in a better way. So I wanted to connect to my database, which is a private resource on AWS, using a PGAdmin, which is on Germ server, using Bastion host. Okay, so I am able to connect to the Bastion host, but I was facing challenge to connect to my database using PGAdmin. Okay, so let me tell you what we did. So my dear friends, here we used a concept of tunneling. Okay, we use SSH tunneling and we have done local port forwarding to connect to our database. So we have set up a 2 Putty session. So in the first Putty session, what we will do, we are trying to connect to the public Bastion host, okay, and then we are doing an SSH tunneling, so that we are doing a local port forwarding to our private Bastion host. Okay, so I have provided a public Bastion host IP that is listening on 2022 port, and I have defined the port. For example, it can be any port. I can give 2222. Okay, so I have defined the port for my private Bastion host. Okay, so this is the configuration I did in my first Putty session. Okay, and in my second Putty session, I have done the configuration. So now I'm connecting to the private Bastion host. So I have given a local IP 127.0.0.1, or you can simply use localhost, and then the port number I have defined. What port number? On which I did the local port forwarding, that is 2222. Okay, so now using this I am trying to connect to the Bastion host. Okay, again what I did a second tunneling. Okay, so using this second tunneling, I am connecting to my database. I have given the database URL which is listening on 5432 port. Okay, and here we are doing again a local port forwarding. So I have given another local port, example 54321 we can give. Okay, great. From that git bash, okay, first we are connecting to the Bastion host. Okay, we have already discussed that we need to scale up the Bastion host, then we are connecting it, then within 30 seconds we need to connect to both of these Putty sessions. Okay, so as soon as I connected to the Bastion host from my git bash, I started the Putty session, I connected to the public Bastion host, it internally did the tunneling and opened the local port for the private Bastion host, and then we started our second Putty session, that is connecting to the private Bastion host, and it is doing the local port forwarding for our database. Okay, great. So with these steps we are able to create the session and we are able to do the local port forwarding for our database. Now what I have done, I have opened my PGAdmin, there I have given the configuration. So in the host I have provided local host, or we can give 127.0.0.1. okay, and then we need to divide, and then we need to define the port, a local port for our database, that is 54321, and then I have provided the user details and the login credentials to connect to the database, and then I have also provided the database name and all. Okay, so I have done the configuration in the PGAdmin, and I am able to connect to my database, which is a private database on AWS. Okay, from my jump box. Okay, so this is the steps we have followed to connect to our database. Okay, similar way we can access any private resources which is on AWS cloud from some external resource by using Bastion host. Okay, so my dear friends, I hope that you are able to understand about this concept. Okay, still if you are having any doubts, then please ask me your doubts and your queries comment section, and hit that like and subscribe button so that you don't miss any updates of my upcoming tutorials.